All right, we're back once again. It's time for another episode of the Sam Franco World Cup podcast. So much soccer to digest over the last week, and we'll do our best here to get to most of it. Sam Franco, Josh Bagriansky joining you, and we'll start this one off by getting the pain out of the way early. And as the U.S. Men's soccer team gets eliminated from the round of 16 by Belgium. And you and I were talking about it before we started this episode up here, Josh. Bottom line, the United States just got beaten by a better team.
Yeah, I think that was the case, and I think folks like us who watched the team over the last 40 years, I think we understood that the goal was to always get out of the group at the World Cup. Everything from there on out is a bonus, and as you said, beaten by a better team, just a heroic performance from Timmy Howard in goal, or it could have been a lot worse, and. I think it's a team that can go home with their heads held high, and hopefully 4 years from now we can see a better, more complete U.S. team than we saw over this World Cup. But still, a great accomplishment to get out of the group and be very competitive against a Belgium team that is world class in basically every position.
Yeah, and I think from a goalkeeping perspective, you mentioned Tim Howard. It's blown up over social media and traditional media over the past 24 hours. One of the best goalkeeping performances of all time in a World Cup. I mean, 16 saves. That's the most in the last 50 years in World Cup play. Just an incredible performance from Tim Howard. And he really did keep the team in it for as long as he possibly could. But, one of the big differences in these two teams was that Belgium had the luxury of going to their bench and bringing on Romelu Lukaku, a guy who's got the frame of an NFL linebacker.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches, and for a guy to come off the bench like that against a back four that's basically given everything they have over 90 minutes really creates problems. And that's a big part of it, as you said, being able to bring guys off the bench like that. And in the end, I think just the gap in quality was massive. You talk about the fight the U.S. team had. But in the end, if you can't hold the ball, if you can't sustain a consistent attack, then your defense is just going to be under pressure time and time again, and it makes things even worse when you head into extra time and you've got a world-class striker like Lukaku coming off the bench, a big physical striker that can get in behind, and that's exactly what he did, and he made us pay for it.
Yeah, and another thing too is when Belgium's going to their bench and bringing on Romelu Lukaku. And the United States is going to their branch and bringing on Chris Wondolowski. It's just not even comparable. And both of us had said this leading into the World Cup. I don't think either of us thought Wondolowski should have been anywhere near that plane to Brazil. And in the lead-up friendlies, he I think it was against Turkey, he missed two just clear opportunities on goal where, I think we even might have said it on this podcast where, he can miss those against Turkey in a friendly leading up to the World Cup. That's fine. But he can't miss those when the actual tournament gets going. And I tell you, man, I find it hard to remember off the top of my head a chance like that being missed in that big of a moment where there was literally about a minute left in stoppage time. And that would have sent U.S. through to that round or the quarterfinal game against Argentina.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, man. We talked about Chris Wondolowski being on the roster before the World Cup. A good MLS player, by all accounts, a good guy, and I think someone that's, represents a lot of what's right about American soccer. A guy that's battled, throughout his whole career, hasn't had anything handed to him. But when you get on that plane to Brazil, you have to have your best 23 guys with you. You can't take guys just because you feel the character wise or sentimentally you want them to be on the roster. And you just talk about the quality of a Chris Wondolowski. He's not a guy. He's a guy we've seen score goals against Belize. He's and teams like that. But any time that I've seen him against top competition at the international level, to me he doesn't even really deserve a sniff. And so you talk about the lack of options behind Josie Altidore in this World Cup. You're playing Clint Dempsey as a false number 9, and there's really just no one to replace him. Belgium can bring a Lukaku off the bench. We're bringing an MLS player that comes in and just scuffs just brilliant opportunity to send us through the next round, as you said. And again, this is not us so much second guessing we were talking about this, and we have proof. You can go listen to us talking before the World Cup that we just did not see Chris Wondolowski scoring a goal in this World Cup, which is what he's there for. He's there to come off the bench and provide a scoring force off the bench, and I just never saw that happening. And he just really blew the opportunity right in front of the goal. You can't blame tired legs for it as he come off the bench, and it's unfortunate. I'm sure he feels worse than anyone about it. But again, when you bring a guy on that's lacking a bit in quality, those are the types of things that happen.
And the flick on from Jermaine Jones could not have been any better. I mean, literally just teeing it up on a plate for him, and it's just unfortunate to have to watch that.
It is unfortunate. It's just one of those things that happens. I don't want to sit here and make Wondolowski the GOAT at all. As we said, we were probably beaten by a better team. But, you go back and look at that game, and that was probably the moment. That was the moment where we had, our destiny in our hands. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, we had a guy on the end of it who was a decent player, but not a player that you really expect to convert in that situation, in that scenario, at that juncture, and it's come back to bite us. And I kind of wonder about Josie. I know he didn't come on. I'm thinking maybe he just wasn't fit enough to play. But certainly that's a chance you'd like to have him take if he's healthy. You'd think he would take it.
One of the things I was trying to think about with all of this was Aaron Johansson, is sitting there on the bench, and I know he didn't have the best game against Ghana in the first game. But what do you think the rationale was from Klinsmann bringing on Wondolowski instead of Aaron Johansson, a guy who's played against tougher competition and delivered?
It's an interesting one. Wondolowski to me is more of a hold the ball up type of guy. For instance, he came at the end of that Portugal game and he did his job. He wasn't so much on there to score a goal. He was to slow up the play, pressure the back four, kill time, and hold the ball. But I feel like in a game against Belgium, maybe Johansson is the way to go. Just a guy with a little more creativity, a little bit more spark and flair. Someone that'll take a guy on 1v1 and create something out of nothing. But it's hard to really. It's hard to really second guess Klinsmann in terms of, are you going to say Johansson would have had the exact same chance Wondolowski had? I'm not so sure. And I also think that Klinsmann was at that point thinking about trying in any way he could to slow the game down and try to get hold of the ball. Aaron Johansson is more a guy that likes to turn and run at defenders. So I think tactically, I can see where Klinsmann was coming from. If he couldn't use Josie Altidore, Wondolowski is a better hold-up player that can help you possess the football a little bit. But again, when it comes to scoring goals, and that's what you want from a striker, I think that most of us would say we're a bit more confident in Johansson in that situation, although I can't say I'm too confident in either of the two.
Yeah, and to address the 500-pound gorilla in the room, it's really hard to say something like I'm about to say because you never know who's going to get what chances and who's going to be in certain positions. But doesn't it just feel like old number 10, Landon Donovan, if given that chance, would have buried it and we'd be playing Argentina on Saturday?
Well, he was given a similar chance in 2010, so you hate to say things like that at this point, but as we said, it comes back to this. When you get on the plane to Brazil, you have to have the best 23 American players on that plane, and I think Klinsmann made a mistake. And again, I'm not even saying Donovan would have made a difference in this World Cup at all. I'm just saying I believe he was one of the best 23. And as you said, I think that shows when you look at the performance of Wondolowski, when you look at the performance of Brad Davis, absolutely dreadful in the Germany match. So I think, if we're going to talk about Landon Donovan, we need to more talk about, is he one of the best 23 American players today? And I think he clearly is. And again, it's hard to sit here and say he'd be presented with that same opportunity, but I agree with you. I think he puts it away. Certainly doesn't scuff it as poorly as Wando did.
Yeah, and obviously you've got to give credit to Belgium. They had a great game plan, and I think the decision to not have Lukaku start the game and then have him available for extra time.
It's just
that's gonna end up being one of the best tactical decisions of the World Cup, especially if they're able to go on and beat Argentina and make it to the semifinals.
Yep, and now you've also got Lukaku with fresh legs coming into that match. So Belgium are a brilliant side. They absolutely dominated, bossed the midfield for the duration of the match. One mistake I thought we made, Sam, tactically, when we were really battling through the first 90 minutes. We were obviously on the back foot. I felt we came out in extra time and kind of tried to push forward and surprise the Belgians a little bit. I don't know if that's a testament to the us being supposed to be a very fit team, and Klinsmann maybe thought that we could catch them napping a bit right away in extra time. But if you look at that first goal, we had more guys pushed forward there than I think we had in the last 30, 45 minutes of the match. We came out in extra time and tried to push, and they really, really made us pay for it with that early goal. And then, as you said, talking about Lukaku, then after that, you just gave a absolutely. Once we're chasing the game, that guy gives you a real problem, and it was a tough final 30 minutes. I really feel Klinsmann. And again, I think Klinsmann managed fantastically in this World Cup. I think he's the man for the job. I have 100% confidence in him. But I thought he made a little mistake there. I thought he made a little mistake trying to push forward coming out of the gates in extra time. Because in the end, the gap in quality is just huge. If we give the ball away in a dangerous position as we did and allow a team like that space and time to get out on the break, they're going to make us pay for it. And that's exactly what happened. And it reminded me a lot of the Ghana match in 2010. I thought we were a little bit naive at the beginning of extra time. We weren't really settled, and then we got caught out on the break.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jurgen Klinsmann. I think he did a heck of a job with the talent he had. We can talk about Landon Donovan all day long, but that point of things aside, I mean, you look at what Bruce Arena and Bob Bradley did. The problem with what they did was they were so focused on winning now, and they had no desire to help development, which is what Klinsmann wants to do. He wants to develop players and get U.S. soccer actually headed in the right direction. So Bob Bradley and Bruce Arena really left Jurgen Klinsmann with not a lot of talent. I keep telling people, keep trying to explain that talent is cyclical. Look at Italy right now. Why do you think Italy hasn't made or hasn't gotten out of the group stage of the last two World Cup? Because the cycle of talent isn't good for them right now. And the United States was kind of in that same issue.
Right. This is not our best team. And then that's one of the reasons, particularly getting out of the group, I think is fantastic. Our back four is not nearly as settled as 2010, although big props to Matt Beasley. I thought he had a fantastic World Cup, but I think some teams in Europe probably noticed him. DeMarcus Beasley was great. I can't say enough about that guy. But again, our back four was much more settled than the last World Cup when you have experienced guys like Bocanegra, Jay DeMerida, Steve Cherundolo anchoring the back four. And again, as you said, this is not the best U.S. team that we've seen. I think going forward, there are some exciting pieces. You talk about developing the youth, and I think that's the reason that a Fabian Johnson, a Julian Green want to come play for Jurgen Klinsmann in the first place, because they understand that he has a long-term vision, and they're comfortable basically switching countries and coming and playing for the United States. And now very excited for the future with those two. But I think you bring up a great point, Sam. And the gap in quality would have been there anyway, but this is certainly not the best U.S. team. You look at Dempsey, obviously still a great player, a legend. He's past his prime. Landon Donovan is not involved anymore. This is your first World Cup without Steve Cherundolo in quite some time. Stuart Holden not fit to play in the World Cup. So, you look down this roster and you don't see the talent and ability, and certainly not the depth that we've seen in the past. So, I think Klinsmann did a great job to bring the guys together and understand the only way that they were going to get what they wanted was to just fight for 90 minutes, and I think that's what we did. I think he pressed the right buttons tactically. His substitutions were very good. And in the end, considering we got out of such a great group, I think you could make a very good argument that we overachieved in this World Cup.
Yeah, no question about it. And people are trying to compare the result to 2010, saying, well, we didn't do any better than in 2010. And I said, look, in 2010, the United States was literally 30 seconds away from not getting out of the group of a pretty mediocre group compared to the one that they were just in. So I think the job that they did in this World Cup was much more impressive than the one they did in the last one.
Oh, it's not even close. I mean, you look back at 2010, you're talking about we have a draw with England, the Slovenia match looking back, although we should have won. Just farcical refereeing at the end to disallow the winner. But, we go down 2-0 to Slovenia, just looked terrible out of the gates. And then the Algeria match was a game that we we dominated, but we weren't able to find that goal until the last moment. So, you know, you could say that in terms of, I thought we underperformed in 2010.
In 2010 was a good squad, but I think the one this time around was probably a little bit better. So that game against Ghana in the round of 16 in 2010 was one that the USA probably should have won.
Yeah, absolutely. I think despite the great moment against Algeria, there was a great opportunity going forward in the knockout stages to make a real run. You know, we had drawn Ghana. The next match being, I believe the next match was going to be the winner of Uruguay and South Korea. Obviously, that would have been tough considering how great a tournament Uruguay ended up having. But I think that was as good a chance as we've had. It's really that I can remember to get to the quarterfinals, aside obviously from 2002 when we made it there. And I agree. I think you looked at the reaction of that squad. They were very, very disappointed. Despite how great it was to get through the group in such great fashion, I think that was a disappointing World Cup. This one, considering, one, the quality and the experience of the squad, and two, the fact that we are playing a different style. We're trying to transition into a different footballing culture and style, made it even more difficult. And then three, just not the quality was not there. You know, as we mentioned, you know, a lot of our guys are out of the prime. We needed other guys to step up in this World Cup, which they did. Guys like Jermaine Jones and Fabian Johnson, all did. Kyle Beckerman, all did a bang up job. But in the end, the talent level was not the same. So, in the end, I think we have to be very pleased with the fight that we showed, and I think we didn't see the same type of naivety from this team that we have from U.S. teams in the past. Yes, there were some of the same silly mistakes that we've seen, but I think there was an understanding that we had to play as a unit, you know, to win matches. We understood that this wasn't the same team of 2010. And I think that we played with a calmness and we showed experience far beyond our years. And again, I think a lot of that goes to Klinsmann and the transition that he's trying to make at the helm right now. So again, I can't. This is a World Cup where I really truly believe that we overachieved.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that. And you know, enough can't really be said about the play of Michael Bradley in a negative way. I know that he had the assist to Julian Green in extra time. And you know, yeah. I kept hearing these stats about how he had run more or traveled more distance than any other player in the World Cup. Yeah, because half the time he was tracking back on balls that he had lost in terrible positions. So, of course, you're going to have to travel a lot of distance in that aspect.
That's a good point. And you know what? That's great that he's working, but that's not his number one job. You know, that's more, and that's, again, I'm not saying don't work. I mean, he's working hard, and his job is to be good on the ball. His job is to distribute. His job is to be that kind of point man. And I know he was playing a little higher up the pitch than usual, but that's really no excuse for the type of World Cup he had.
And he was playing out of position, which is unfortunate for him, and that was brought on by the Josie Altidore injury, which really shook everything up, and that did really mess up the United States' overall game plan. But, you know, players go down, and you have to expect that. You have to be ready for that, and unfortunately, though, when it's just such a big part of what you're trying to do, and Josie Altidore was that pinpoint guy up top, the United States just didn't have anybody else to go to that could play that position effectively.
And, you know, it has to be understood, you know, players like Mike, as you said, injuries will happen. Players like Michael Bradley are the players we're counting on to move around and fill the void for guys that exit, you know, when guys become injured. So when Josie got hurt, there was no question in anyone's mind that Bradley was going to be the guy to push up higher and provide more of a creative force in the final third, as opposed to his normal role as kind of a deep-lying playmaker. And he didn't do the job. I don't sympathize with that. He's playing out of position at all because, if there was going to be an injury to Josie Altidore or Clint Dempsey or one of those front guys who, as you said, are kind of at the point man, I think it was common knowledge, and he knew it, we knew it, that Michael Bradley was going to have to step up as that and become that creative force. and he just didn't do it. So, you can talk about miles covered, playing out of position, what have you. We rely on Michael Bradley for a lot, and he did not provide what we needed in this World Cup, and it's unfortunate. Hopefully, again, he's a good player. Hopefully, 4 years from now, we can see a better performance from him. But certainly, in terms of, we talked about earlier in the Belgium match, and we talked about it all throughout the World Cup, our inability to hold the ball, to possess the ball. And I'd say the majority of the blame has to fall on his shoulders as supposedly our distributing creative center mid.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with you there. And let's jump focus here to the future. We'll get to the the quarterfinal matchups here in a little bit, but I did want to jump to the future, and maybe each of us can kind of try and forecast what the lineup will be in 2018, and obviously that's going to include Julian Green, who came on and literally with his first touch of the ball scored a goal, thanks to really Michael Bradley's best contribution in the entire tournament, which was the nice little floated ball over the top that Julian Green was able to hit first time.
It's the first time he did that the entire tournament. I mean, that's something we count for him on. That's the first time I remember him playing that lovely weighted over the top ball to one of our attackers. It took that long.
Yeah, it really did. And kind of shifting forward here to talk about what we think the lineup will be. We'll start in goal. Tim Howard at 39 isn't completely out of contention for being the starting goalkeeper for the United States in 2018. I know a lot of people were ready to say, well, that must have been his last performance in a U.S. shirt, blah, blah, blah. I don't think so. I mean, goalkeepers, that there was I think, is it Colombia starting goalkeepers like 43.
Yeah, they go. I mean, look at Brad Friedel. I know he's retired in 2002, but Brad Friedel is still going strong. He could easily be our international keeper today. So I see no reason to believe that Tim Howard isn't competing for the spot here in 4 years. But he's going to have some competition. Brad Guzan is. To me, one of the best backup goalkeepers at the World Cup. He could have started for the vast majority. I think of the teams out there. He's not a young guy, but he's younger than Tim Howard. So that's going to be interesting competition over the next 4 years. Tim Howard is really going to have to maintain his level as a world class keeper. Any sort of drop off at all, and Guzan's going to be nipping at his heels for that starting job.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Moving on to the back line. I think that Timmy Chandler, given some more time and experience to grow, I think he will be one of the outside backs. I think Fabian Johnson will continue to be one of the other outside backs. And then there's probably a three-man battle for the two center back spots. Obviously, Beasler and Gonzalez will be around. And does that the third spot there is going to be it's John Brooks. It kind of escaped me for a second there. But out of those three guys, I think that the Beasler-Gonzalez pair has showed a lot of promise at times, and they will have more experience playing together. But John Brooks is a fine player in his own right, so he's going to be one that definitely works his way in there as well.
Absolutely, and he's only going to get better. Those three, I'm excited about those three after this World Cup, to be honest. Brooks is a bit raw. He's going to have to get better, but as you say, he's a young player. He gets to play quite a bit in Germany's top league, so he's only going to improve. I thought Matt Beasler just had a great World Cup. He was just brilliant in that Portugal match. His distribution was good. His reading of the game was excellent. I was very impressed with him. He far surpassed my expectations. And Omar Gonzalez is a guy, when he's on his game, when you consider his physical prowess, he's a top center back. But I would propose this on the right. I thought DeAndre Yedlin as a 20-year-old kid was absolutely fantastic. If he can win that right back job, we have an opportunity to do something with Fabian Johnson that we would have liked to do this whole World Cup, and that's to move him up into an attacking position on the right wing. If Yedlin can become that guy at right back, I think Fabian Johnson moves up and becomes more of an attacking player.
Well, I was going to get to DeAndre Yedlin when we moved on to the midfield, and it seems like you would want Fabian Johnson there on the right. I argue that I think Fabian Johnson might provide a little bit more in terms of the ability to defend. So maybe you put DeAndre Yedlin on the right wing. And in this lineup that I've dreamt up here, I'm kind of thinking of the 4-4-2 diamond with Michael Bradley in the midfield would be your holder, the guy at the bottom of the diamond. And then on the two flanks, I'd like to see, DeAndre Yedlin out on the right. And, the left is an interesting spot there. Certainly a couple of different guys would be in contention for that spot. Maybe an Alejandro Bedoya or somebody else that comes up through the ranks. And then at the top of the diamond, I would love to see Mix Diskerud get that opportunity.
Yeah, I'm a big Diskerud fan. It was a shame that he didn't feature in this World Cup. There just wasn't really an opportunity for him, but a very good creative midfielder that likes to sit right underneath the striker and make things happen. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can become over the next 4 years. And hey, another name, I love to throw this name out there, but his fitness has just been a disaster. Stuart Holden is only 28, and he'll be wanting to play in a World Cup. So if he can somehow find his fitness in the next 4 years, that's a guy you can employ both beneath the striker, on the wings, in a lot of different places. So if he finds a way to get back involved in the next 4 years and find his fitness, I think he might play a role as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It would just be nice to be able to get Michael Bradley back into his favored spot, just because. I don't know in the midfield why I didn't mention Julian Green. Julian Green would be a tremendous option on the left. It just depends on what you want to do. So if in terms of providing the lineup in the midfield that I would want, it would be Green on the left, Yedlin on the right, Diskerud at the top of the diamond, and Michael Bradley at the bottom of the diamond. I think that could be a really nice attack-oriented lineup that would get forward, put teams under pressure, and still be able to keep the ball a little bit, at least there in the midfield.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a strong lineup. But, we have to be honest. I mean, so much transpires in the 4 years between World Cups. I mean, obviously, I think those young guys are going to be here. But as you mentioned, we don't know for sure what Michael Bradley is going to be in 4 years. He's come over to MLS. We've seen guys kind of have dips in form and quality after 4 years in a second-tier league. And again, that's no disrespect to MLS, but this is a guy that went from playing the Serie A, Premiership, Eredivisie over the past 7-8 years to now playing in the MLS. So who's to say he'll be around? A lot can happen over 4 years, but I do think we have some exciting, not just exciting young pieces, but exciting young attacking pieces, as you mentioned, with the Yedlins, the Johnstons, the Julian Greens of the world. Josie Altidore hopefully will continue to improve over the next 4 years. There is definitely a core here that can play an attacking style, as you mentioned, that we have not had in the past. So I'm excited to see how that kind of comes together over the next 4 years. And we'll see what happens. I think a big part of it's going to be solidifying the back four over time, over these next 4 years. But I do agree with you that in terms of going forward, we have some exciting young players that bring some things to the table that we've never really been able to have in our lineup before.
Yeah, and I think last but not least, in terms of the strike force up top there in the 4-4-2 formation that I've dreamed up here, I would like to see Josie Altidore and Aaron Johansson play in the same team because they do so many things differently that I think they would complement each other very well in a strike force.
Yeah, they would be a good pairing. And again, that's just this was not our youngest team, but I think that our young players are different than what we've had in the past in terms of attacking, creative players that take the game to the defenders, that have confidence, flair, things that we have not seen in the past. And I think Johansson is going to be a big part of that pairing with Josie Altidore up top. And he's a guy that can move around. He can go play out wide. He can play beneath the striker. So his versatility, if he continues to improve as a footballer, is going to make those two a very scary pairing up front.
All right, well, that'll put a bow on our U.S. soccer portion of this podcast. And, no more World Cup for the U.S., but still plenty of World Cup to go as we have reached the quarterfinal stage now. And we'll start looking at some of those games. We will start with Germany and France. This game has a lot of history behind it in terms of the two nations. We won't get into all of the World War II stuff. We'll leave that to some other people. But definitely a very mouth-watering matchup. On paper. These two teams very good. Both like to get forward. Both can possess. I would still think Germany's going to win this game. Thomas Mueller having a heck of a World Cup up top for Germany. They have a guy they can bring in off the bench in Miroslav Klose who could strike at any time. And I think across the board, this Germany team is just that little bit better than France, and that'll be enough to get them through to the semifinals.
I respectfully disagree.
Wow.
I think that Germany, as you said, are definitely the better team, man to man. But if you just look at the way the two sides have been playing in this World Cup, I think France have really played very well. They look as if they have something to prove. And I know I mentioned this before, but they seem to have a real chip on their shoulder after what happened to them 4 years ago. And I just think the way that they're playing, the desire to prove that they are still a large footballing nation, that's a true contender for winning World Cups. I think that gives them a little extra. And I just look at the form of the two teams. Germany, aside from that Portugal match, have been a bit unconvincing in this World Cup. They were good against Algeria, but they didn't find the finishing touch. They didn't look great against the U.S. They didn't look great against Ghana. We're gonna and meanwhile France have played some great free flowing football. So we're gonna have to see a much better performance from the German side, particularly though Mesut Ozil needs to step up and help them going forward. And a lot of guys, need to step up and play better, or I think it's going to be a tough road to hoe against France.
Well, I think France was extremely wasteful, not only against Ecuador, but against Germany for the better chunk of that game. Just couldn't take advantage of the opportunities they were given. But I think that they definitely, when they have been playing their best, they've looked very good, and they could win this game. I'm not saying they can. I just feel like Germany will do the what's necessary to get the win there and set up a semifinal against either Brazil or Colombia, which is another just mouth-watering fixture. Yeah, no question about it. Brazil, the host nation, has not played their best soccer for large chunks of this tournament. Very fortunate against Chile. I mean, Chile had a shot that smacked off the bar at the end of extra time that would have won them that game and set up a Chile-Colombia matchup, but instead Brazil wins in a penalty shootout, and they will take on Colombia, probably the darlings of this tournament, and the rising superstar James Rodriguez has just been unbelievable for Colombia, scored some incredible goals.
Yeah, maybe the best player in the tournament, and he's shown a new element to his game, scoring goals. He's always been a good goal scorer, but he's kind of been a table setter, a playmaker, if you will, in that number 10 position. This World Cup, he's done both, and it's a shame he plays for Monaco because it's going to take so much money for a big club to come pry him away. He has been wonderful. I cannot wait to see him and how he matches up against those great center midfielders in Brazil. It's going to be I think this might be the game of the World Cup, to be honest with you.
I agree, and I'm going to call for Colombia to win. I think Colombia dumps Brazil. I just don't think Brazil have done enough in this tournament to warrant me giving them the pick here. And I think James Rodriguez is going to terrorize that Brazil midfield. The center of Brazil's midfield is vulnerable. They can be run at, and I think they're going to have a nightmare. Not only them, but also the center backs, so the defense in general is going to have big problems trying to handle James Rodriguez. But he's not the only one. Cuadrado is a very good player as well. And just across the board, Colombia is very solid.
Yeah, they're a great team, and this is one of the reasons I was kind of singing their praises before the World Cup, despite the loss of Falcao. This is a great team.
Yeah, you had me beat on this one. I'll give you credit for that.
A team that is good top to bottom. We talk about obviously Rodriguez has been one of the darlings of the World Cup, but this is a team that I watched in qualifying, and they have a style to them. This is a lot of guys who came up together. They're kind of putting Colombian football back on the map. To me, they're more of a team than a lot of the squads in this tournament. They played a good style during qualifying. And obviously losing a guy like Falcao before the World Cup doesn't help you, but sometimes that allows the Rodriguez's of the world to step up and not rely so much on him to go get the goals. So I think in some ways that's actually helped them perform better as a unit. But one important thing to note about Colombia, everyone's touting them as world beaters and all this. No one has had an easier road than these guys. And they've done what they had to, so give them credit. But they played Greece, Ivory Coast, Japan in the group, and then Uruguay without Luis Suarez in the round of 16. So they have not truly been tested yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team responds. Again, this is everyone's first World Cup on that roster. How do they respond against a world-class team in Brazil? I know they haven't been great, but this is by far the best team they've played all tournament, and they're the hosts. So we're going to learn a lot about what this Colombia team really is coming up here on Friday, because they have not been under much pressure yet this tournament, and I think that's one of the reasons that they played so well. This is going to be a very, very different type of 90 minutes for them.
Yeah, no question about it. And you know, I think that side of the bracket, the Germany, France, and Brazil, Colombia one, is probably a little more loaded than jumping over to the other side, where you've got Netherlands and Costa Rica. That'll be one of the quarterfinals. And look, Costa Rica's had a wonderful run in this tournament. They've been one of the darlings of the World Cup. I just don't see them having enough in the tank to beat this Netherlands team, who is just so potent on offense.
They are really firing on all cylinders, and maybe a little bit fortunate to get here, to get past Mexico. But I think, again, you know, you've got to give them credit for fighting back in the final minutes of that match. And as you said, I mean, the quality going forward for Holland is really just wonderful at this point. They've been an absolute joy to watch on the attack. That's going to be really tough for Costa Rica. But the good thing about Costa Rica is they'll approach this match tactically the same way they basically have every other match. You know, it's not a situation where suddenly they're going to have to drop back and defend and try to catch a team out on the counter. That's pretty much what they've been able to do all tournament. They've done a great job of that. So Costa Rica will just want more of the same. They won't have to make a lot of adjustments in terms of their style. So I think that they could give the Dutch a run, and the Dutch are a team that are known for slipping up in critical moments in big tournaments. So, you know, I can't predict Costa Rica, but I do think they can give the Dutch a good run for their money.
Yeah, and for the Dutch, Memphis Depay has been a guy who is going to be turning himself into a household name. You know, he played extremely well in the times that he's been given, almost to the point where you might have to consider starting him against Costa Rica, because he's been so good out there on that wide side.
Yeah, I know. You know, we come into this World Cup, there were so many questions about this Dutch team because of the youth. Pretty much every single one of those young players has answered the bell and stepped up, and they're as solid as anyone in the tournament right now. And I think they have as good an opportunity to win the tournament as anyone right now.
Yeah, completely agree. And then we'll jump to our last quarterfinal, Argentina versus Belgium. Belgium at times can just possess you to death. And that could be a pretty dangerous thing going up against Argentina, who haven't looked their best at times. Messi was largely invisible in their round of 16 game, right up there until the end when he was able to find Angel Di Maria for the game-winning goal. But yeah, he was largely invisible for big chunks of that game.
He certainly was. One of the things that I think Messi has shown in this World Cup, though, because you could probably say the same thing about in that Iran match where he scores, he's found a way to pop up in the critical situations. You know, when he needs to put, as good as Argentina is, he has to put them on his back at times, and I think that he has a better understanding of picking his spots, understanding when he has to do that. He certainly did it in the final moments against Switzerland. He did the same thing against Iran. But as the teams become better, as the quality of opponent improves, he's going to need to give you more moments like that throughout the match, because, you know, when as we said, the quality of opponent is going to be much better. There's no guarantee that he's going to be able to just have a great moment in the final minutes of the match. He has to show a little more consistency over the full 90 minutes and have a few of those messy moments, not just one. You know, and I hope he does, because when he's doing that, there's no one better to watch in the world.
No, I would definitely agree. Lionel Messi has been very good throughout most of this tournament. But yeah, he cannot disappear in this game. They are going to need him, because Belgium can pass you to death. You know, we can run down the names, but I'm pretty sure every U.S. soccer fan knows all of these names after watching that game.
Yeah, that's going to be a great one.
Yeah, Prince Harry, a.k.a. Kevin De Bruyne. I really think that is going to be, you know, that's going to be right up there with Brazil-Colombia for me as one of the better games, just because Belgium they're so young, but they're so good. So we'll see what happens there.
So good.
Yeah, they are. We found that out the hard way. All right, so we've given you the analysis there. So now we're going to run down each quarterfinal, just one word, who wins. You know, we'll start there with Germany, France. I said Germany, you said France, correct?
Yes.
All right. That's your pick there. We'll jump to Brazil, Colombia. I'm going to pick Colombia. I think Colombia win this game and go to the semifinal.
I'm going to stick with Brazil as the host. I think that do think this is going to be the best game of the tournament.
All right, so jumping to the other side of the bracket there, Netherlands, Costa Rica, I think just Netherlands are going to be a little too much for the Ticos to handle.
Yes. Although I want to see Costa Rica because you said one word and that would be two, but they're not going to win. You got to go all the way.
That's all good, man.
Hard to be a smartass there, but it didn't work out. So.
And last but not least, Argentina, Belgium. I really want to pick Belgium, but I just think Messi's going to come up with that one or two moments of magic, and I think Argentina are going to get through.
Toss up for me, but I'm going Belgium because I think they can control the game in the midfield, and that's what's able to keep Messi off the ball and from having those Messi moments. I like Belgium in this match.
All right, well, that'll about wrap up this edition of the Sam Franco World Cup podcast. We will be back after the quarterfinals to wrap those things up and get you ready for the semis. And then we'll, come back at you after the semis and set up the final and maybe even talk about the third place game, which everybody loves so much, right, Josh?
Yeah, gotta love playing for third. There's nothing like it.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it so much, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right, man. You have a good one, and everybody enjoy their football this weekend. Have a great July 4th.
Sounds good. All right, for Josh Baguransky, I'm Sam Franco. Thank you guys for listening, and we will be back very soon with another exciting episode of the Sam Franco World Cup podcast.